So this is one of our integration weeks, so it's going to feel very different. I watched last week's lesson, and I don't always do that, but like it was an hour of talking about the internet and how it works, which is, in hindsight, it's fun and amazing, and the internet is a weird, crazy thing, but that's not the goal this week. It's definitely a lot more about you guys, what you've been up to, and what do you want to do. I think there'll be some cool conversations to have. It looks like we've got some cool show and tell things to go over, and then what we think would be fun to make happen would be cool to talk about. And we've already, for the people like RV and I were just talking about, we did the SSH thing and then talked about like what her project might be for the week. So there's all sorts of fun stuff that we can work on to see where people are at and what they're headed towards. The neat thing, if you looked at the calendar for the upcoming 2 weeks, this week is the integration week project and next week is a wildcard week. And so we've kind of got a couple in a row of just boom, boom, 2 weeks of go for it with a project.
Yeah, couldn't they,
Yeah.
What you start this week, do next week.
Yep. So you start something, you keep going. 2 weeks is always never enough time for any good integration project, but it's fun to try and to get in and to do things. So we're going to try and do that again. And 2 weeks is probably enough that like you can really procure whatever you need to do, make it happen, and go for it. Like your last time we did this was the cutting board, right? And so that was
a long time.
That's okay. Well, sometimes it does.
I'm not going to be quite ambitious. I think it sounds like it will be. We'll see.
Yeah, you never know. Sometimes you start a project and they get out of hand. Right. I think it's worth taking a look at like, oh, you know what I can do is I can pull up inside of Fusion. I can show you what I have been, how I got to the cart, since it's like a reasonable recent integration project that I did for you all. This is what I was intending to do actually, and then forgot, and now I'm back to it. Fusion 360 takes a minute to load. James and Norm are here. They're just muted. And so I
was on my way to, learning it, and now get it, I have to start at square one.
Oh, Fusion is a giant pile of things to learn all the time that you can never get all at once wrapped around. Like okay, let me go back and actually share my screen properly.
It would be a good, like one of the classes they offer.
Yeah. Oh.
Definitely go.
Yeah. We should tell Ashley that before she leaves.
Oh, yeah.
But I totally agree. Yeah, we can totally Slack her. The key thing about any project in here is that there's many levels of being able to do it. And so like, here's, like there's the, cool. So the key is that you can have things of all different types and quality and like structure. Here's an example of just a simple stool. That's this sort of flat pack design. We're going to talk a lot more about the theory of how you do this design work. You can see there's a lot of little like bumps on the edges of things. That's a feature that you have to have when you're cutting with a round end mill. But in here, this is what it can look like to design something like that. And this design I made before I understood how a certain part of Fusion works. It's just sort of designed there. And like, here's other projects I've got that I've been thinking about inside of Fusion. Every so often I need to remember to myself that I've been playing in 3D design software since 2004. So this is a long time of building this skill set up. So it's not like it's something that, I sat down and designed this once in an afternoon and then came back and designed it again. But that's a skill set that it takes a long time to get good at doing those things. This is a little teeter-totter where like water comes in through the blue funnel and then it pours to one side or the other. And this, let's see if I can grab it and control what's going on. Yeah, I want to do this and I can drive this joint and it's got a stop to it. So it'll tip like this and like this, like that craziness that's happening. And so when it tips back and forth like that, the idea is that on the other side, there's a magnet that lives in that little spot, and I might be able to tell if that magnet is to the left or to the right. And so if I can tell if the magnet is to the left or the right with some electronics, I can tell how many times it's tipped, which tells me how much volume of water has passed through that system. So I can measure how much water was given to a plant, right? So that's a fun one. And I've tried many times to print this in a reasonable way. Not always does it come out well. There's little details to figure out.
Why is it wedge shaped on the bottom? Where are you supposed to stick it?
To stick it in the ground. It should live real close to the ground. And that wedge shape is pretty pointy and probably wouldn't do that good at keeping it upright. Like it needs barbs or legs or something, like a pitchfork might make more sense than just like one thing there, but it's what I don't know. It's what I did. But the Wacom, whatever this thing is still called, this stand is really the one that for the past couple of weeks took over and was the integration project that I was thinking about. There's a host of, and this is so here's the interesting thing. Don't save those changes. There's multiple parts of Fusion 360, and this is something that we're going to look at when we go into things more. This is the manufacturer space, but there's also the design space. So within the design space, here's the design, and we can like, if I open up these enclosed folded areas, we can sort of click through what it took to design all of this. So this is the history of the design, and you can see all the different like features and details and whatever. And if we start at the beginning and hit play, it'll sort of walk us through. Oh, maybe I need to put the cursor over here or get out of that mode. If I do this, it'll sort of walk you through the process of how I thought through and designed the whole thing, going through one feature at a time and showing you the whole animation, like it's marching through the time across the bottom. And so it's kind of hard to follow, but you can see construction planes pop into existence, and then sketches and things and different features. And it's going to glitch out from time to time and different things show up. If I was playing with everything lined up right, we could do it again, rotated. You can see how it snaps into place in different places. You can see this is a cutaway for the Made at MakeHaven piece. But really it's going through, and it has the main body. And then what it's going through now is all the like manufacturing bits, the like things that it takes not to go from an idea, but instead to like actually produce it. So there's a bunch of different, like here I'm importing the actual like hardware so that I could model what that would look like, adding in the final details. But
For the hardware?
yeah, inside of Fusion 360, here's insert McMasterCar component.
Yeah.
So you can go to McMasterCar and like look at everything that's in their list. Like if I wanted to import the nuts and their 3D model, you can totally do that. So all of this is importable. I think I went into, I'm sure I just searched casters, right? And so casters like this. And then once you're in here, I grabbed some sort of caster that was in this ballpark. As long as it's got a CAD model, you can click on a part number. And so like, you can download the SolidWorks or Fusion 360 CAD models. So all of this you can download and have it included into your piece. I want to get out of there. Okay. But this is the project that I have been working on. And what's interesting about it is like, this is for a long time, I thought about designing in this space, and then I would have to run through a bunch of hoops to get to the end result. But the thing that I learned in this new project is how to use this manufacturer space, which is really the CAM part. Normally I've thought of it as the CAM, which is computer aided manufacturing part of Fusion 360. And I'm still learning at that. But it's also got the ability to do, because they've realized that people are using it for exactly what I'm using it for, they've gotten better at making sure that it's accessible for people to do flat pack design. Like in here, I've got its own whole setup for the manufacturing model. And if I go in and let's see, right click on this and say edit manufacturing model, now it's got its own entire history. And you lay out a big rectangle and say just lay out there. And then here's a bunch of test fit pieces that I made so that I could check to see that all the fit of the parts worked right. And I had to do, so there's four that they're in groups of four, where like this is just sort of the raw size of the cut. And then these ones that are marked have a little extra gap. And so I did this first set of four and realized I didn't like the raw and I didn't like the extra gap. So then I tried adjusting my extra gap again. And I could have adjusted the material thickness also if I wanted to, but I just wanted to change this. So I did another set with another four and realized I liked this sizing.
But is that something you cut to test it?
I had to cut it to test it.
So, but you didn't, like, you have it next to this, but you didn't.
Right. I have it next to that. And
You
if,
found some other scrap or something.
oh, it all fit onto the thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, you didn't run the whole thing because these are test pieces.
That's right. I did. I ran, let's see, I want to find, where's the sketches? Is it these sketches? Yeah. So there's the whole piece of plywood, and I made sure that everything fit below this rectangle so that I would have space for those test fit pieces.
Which you did first.
Which I did first. So I did all these test fit pieces first. And when the first ones didn't work, I readjusted all of it all in one shot, like by changing some parameters. And we're talking parameters like in here, change parameters with a spreadsheet if it opens. But I was able to change the parameters and then cut the next four and see that I liked it. And then I could use the rest of the settings that were there and just cut the rest of it all with those settings. So it was a whole back and forth to get it to work, but I was able to use that little area of the sheet of plywood to figure out how to get all the rest of it. Which is good because like these pieces that are laid out right here, they're actually wrong. Like this is not the most up-to-date version. Somehow I'm like nervous that I lost track of the most up-to-date version. It's got to be on my desktop somewhere. Here's the Wacom making folder. And so in here is the like G code that I was using. Oh. And so here's, oh, this is the process of making it. So those are, I also documented, well, here's a glitched time lapse that is not on, it's on the wrong screen. So I used the Gerber and then recorded it with my GoPro, and I had a hard time getting it all to come together, but it was nice to document. And documenting feels like it's sometimes its own extra chore, and this is sort of the glitched version of trying to put that video together.
Colors.
I was trying to use, I don't know, is the short answer. I don't know. I was trying to code a thing to put the photos into a video, and it just sort of like did that. But here's the, I think I did the new, you know, like these are all of the different versions, and new fence. This is the new fence version. Here's all of the different CRV things, and I've got different models that I use to cut it out. And so all of this is just sort of the documentation of what happened. But it's coming from Fusion 360, where ultimately those were the test fits. Fences make good neighbors. Maybe this is probably what, yeah, there's those are the pieces that I took. So they're probably modeled in place on the bottom to match what it, yeah, to match what I really wanted the fences to be. So these I cut out later with extra space from the fit test that I didn't have to do.
Okay.
So I was able to get all of my pieces out of one sheet of plywood, even though I didn't get it all there. But this is like a big project. And then on top of it, you know, doing all of that was lots of fun. And then coming back and doing the, let's see if I can pull up the photos, right? If you're in the space and you've seen it, you can see that there's the big resin thing on the side. That's totally just, let's see, go to photos. I'm getting ready to put together like a little video montage that's hopefully like less than a minute of how it works, or of how it came together from idea to thing. And so the big resin thing on the side, that's of the whole project, I probably spent most of my time working on the big resin piece on the side, like 3-to-1. Most of the time was spent on the big resin thing. And the rest of it was all able to be cut out in an afternoon. And then the fence, like these are the fence pieces that are much bigger than the original design, the ones that you saw as separate floating pieces. Because when I cut it the first time, I had designed it all to fit sort of estimate sizes for the stand. And then I never corrected it to be what it really was. And then I cut it out in real life that way. So I needed to recut these. You can see how they're not uniform all the way around, and it gives sort of extra space, which I think in hindsight isn't that big of a problem for the actual piece. But I will know, and now all of you will know, that that's a mistake that I made. But all is well that ends well, and it still came out of one sheet of plywood. But this is sanded to 600 grit sandpaper. So it's a really high grit sandpaper, and it's fun to have the little piece there. And then this is laser cut fabric for the denim underneath the keyboard. There's lots of fun to be had. You can really go a long way. This would be a good like final project sort of thing. It is not a 1 week, it's not a 1 or 2 week kind of project, but it's good just to see sort of like what projects can grow into. So that's fun to take a look at. And that's the show and tell for what I have been up to until recently. But I think the more interesting and more useful is to talk about how this like ballooned and grew, right? Like I could have done this faster if I didn't want to learn how to use the manufacturer space. I had a workflow that worked well enough in the design space where I can just export sketches right off of these surfaces. Like if I want that surface, I can export that sketch and it totally would work. But it's clunky and like forcing it to do it rather than using the elegant solution that's built in to Fusion 360. And so that was a area of growth for me. We're going to talk about how to do all those things a little bit more as we'll have a week of that coming up in the Make Something Big week. But it's good just to see what this looks like and how those fit. So that is too big of a project, but it'd be fun to hear from you all what you have been doing for the past week, if you got to log into the SSH deal, and then what you are thinking about taking on, and then we can try and make sure that we redirect towards achievable goals over the next 2 weeks, because that's an important part of figuring out how to make things work, is how to get to a place where you're headed in the right direction. So with that, we've got people in the room and we've got people who are playing along through Zoom. And so I want to, first off, stop sharing my screen. And if anybody at home is going to unmute a camera or a microphone, we can let you share. We can pop over and have people in the room share for what they're thinking about doing. And you two are, it's easier to just share. Harvey, we were talking about something. You want to talk about it some more?
I started to draw it a little bit.
Cool.
Do you need to come there?
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to, we can come up here. This.
Okay. Hi, y'all. I think where did I look? Here?
This is the one.
Okay.
And we can point it at your sketch if you want.
Yeah, I literally just did this while sitting there, so it's not great. But I think I'm going to do a sign for my friend. Her and her family, they just bought a house in New Britain, and they're using their front yard to be like a small community garden type situation. And they're calling it Our Corner New Brit, well, NB. And yes, I'm going to make a sign for her garden to put at the corner. She's like a corner lot. It'll have like a stake in it. I keep looking here because I see myself. It'll have like a stake that they can put into the ground. I'm going to put some solar lights in it so that at night the lights hit the sign and you can see their little garden sign. Yeah, they have they're using like a West African symbol for it. So I'm probably going to put that on the design and the Shapoko. I'm actually thinking about doing it like the MakeHaven piece for the table that you were just showing. So filling it with epoxy, I think it'll be really cool.
That's nice. And it's real stable for one too. So like
Okay.
it'll be, that plastic is going to stay. There's some UV resistant resins that are like particularly good. We'll want to check before we like get real committed to a resin that would just deteriorate.
Okay, cool. If not, we can carve it out. It'll be fine. So yeah, I think that's what my integration project is gonna be.
Cool.
The Chipoco with some solar lights to make a garden sign.
Yeah, we were looking at the solar lights, and they're like the dollar store solar lights are really fun to tear apart.
Yeah,
And they're cheap and all the parts are easy. You can snip the wires and solder, make them longer.
yeah.
Works like a charm.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
She'll be happy.
awesome. Cool. All right, and then we've got James or Norm, if either of you guys want to unmute. Otherwise, we'll switch over to, oh, Norm's on his way.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I should probably share a screen.
Oh, let me make sure that you're allowed. Okay, you should be available to now.
All right. Let me just find the right thing. Am I showing it?
Yep.
So I've shown these pictures before, where I'm headed is I've got a kind of really messy area here that I want to have a storage solution for. And for a model, I kind of looked at this thing I've got elsewhere, which is way beyond my abilities, but I'm using it as kind of a piece of background. I started thinking about how I might achieve a storage thing. And this looks like it's kind of a simple thing, but actually there's several projects in this drawing here. And the first part would be the lid of this box, which then contains drawers. And the lid would not just be a lid, it would be kind of a display area for things that I put in it here. And I think that's one project really. Then separately, when I say it's one project, for some good person, the whole thing, they could do it. But for me, being really practical about it, that's a project.
Yeah.
Also, for me, the drawers will be a project because as you can see up here, there's metal work around them and there's a mechanism for pulling it out. And I want them to look nice. So there'll be some selection of wooden stuff. So that's another whole project. And then the case is yet another project and a hard one for me because it needs to be stable and capable of supporting drawers. It needs to fit together well, and I'm not gonna even try to do fancy joinery for this. It'll be something simple. If I can find a way to support the drawers and still use this side for more display or inlay work, that'll be yet another project for me. So that's what I've been thinking.
No, that is absolutely a good collection of projects. I'm with you. As I'm thinking about that, I'm wondering about the way that you do the display panels. And I'm wondering, were you thinking like a shadow box sort of deal on the top, like a horizontal?
What I'm thinking of is using the Shapeoko, of course, to put pockets in the lid. And then what goes in that? Different things go in that. I've been resawing exotic woods to 1/4 inch sizes that I think I maybe could make some kind of inlay pattern with and just inlay it into those slots. Or I've also cut bigger pieces to 1/4 inch size that could themselves have their own Shapeoko pockets that could either, and they would be exotic wood so they'd look good in a way. What I'm gonna probably do is I've done some laser cut wood panels of coastal scenes that I like, and etching them into acrylic and dropping them in there is a thing I'm going to do.
No, that's really cool. And thinking about like the dimensionality of that panel and how thick it would need to be, I think it's going to be not very thick at all. That's good.
Well, no, it has to, because of all the pockets.
Oh yeah.
it needs to be 3/4. I'm pretty sure it needs to be three, and I've already actually been thinking about that. I think that to drop the inlays in, they're going to be at least 1/4 inch. I could maybe do this top in 1/2 inch, but I feel safer doing 3/4. If I were
Yeah.
really good at all the dimensioning, maybe I wouldn't be so worried. But it really doesn't matter. 3/4, 1/2 inch, one of those will work. An 1/8 inch won't work.
Right.
I'd be cutting right through.
Yeah.
And the idea too about these inlays is that they'd be pop out things, so I could change actually what's inlaid there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
even sure that I'll secure the lid. I think I'll have it just be sitting on top so that it could come out and be its own display thing.
Yeah, that makes some sense.
Or replace it. You know, I can make another lid for another. I mean, I could make interchangeable versions of this thing.
Oh yeah, or you could make it like a frame that's held on with magnets, and then like a piece of acrylic to just keep, you know, between the frame and the inlay pockets,
Okay.
something like that,
Okay.
so that you can pop it off pretty easily, but it would stay there also nicely. That seems like a good way to go. And then you could have those pockets. It depends on how much you want to fill, but you know, if I'm imagining, maybe this is way off for size, but like a 3x5 inch card size
Yeah.
for your display items. And if they totally fill it, you could even cut a hole in the middle, so like you get underneath with a finger and you push it up out when you've got the lid off.
Yeah.
Any you know, you start to think about what exactly you want to display, and or if you want to make sure that the bottom's full so you can put whatever in there. There's lots of good options, but I think just thinking about the display top would be good, for sure. And thinking about, and then the other one that I would think about is the box, like the actual woodworking of the box. But
Well,
maybe you want to do,
yeah, that's going to be very hard for me because it has to, and that's why I'm leaving till the very end the sides, because I may need to secure some kind of platform through the sides that will support those drawers. And if I do that, I'm going to limit my ability to do drop-in panels on the sides.
yeah, drawers are an interesting feature in any setup. They're usually, what I have found when I was approaching drawers, and I was thinking about it not from something nearly as decorative, but from like a dresser sort of perspective, is I was worried that I was going to need to have a bunch of cross supports and all sorts of things. But it turns out that if you're going to buy the like Euro hinges that are very cheap at a big box store, all you need is a vertical wall and then spacing out those hinges, and the drawers themselves are boxes. And then everything about that drawer that looks nice, a good, easy way to do it is to make the box and then use a false front, so that that's what looks nice, and you're tacking it on after you figure out all the drawer logistics sort of separately. So, and if you open your kitchen drawers, that's absolutely what they did. There's a box and then there's a thing in front. Only like very high quality woodworkers that are confident they're never going to screw up would try and do it as one integrated box. And it's just because it's so much easier to have a false front that you screw on or you attach. It makes it much more approachable to do those drawers.
Yeah.
So that's, and there's some really good, I really like Chris Salamone, who's 4 Eyes on YouTube. He does a great job of explaining like how to make good boxes and then how to set in drawers. They actually have entire classes. And I'll send a link. He's definitely, and I really like their sense of humor. They're the kind of YouTube that I just watch on the Saturday morning for fun, for sure. And so it's, yeah, that's okay. I just like watching them do the woodworking. It's great. And then they're sort of funny all at the same time. So I would totally recommend you go there. They even have a video called Building Better Boxes. That's really worth a watch.
Okay.
So that would be good. And I think probably thinking about your display panel first will give you an idea of how you'd want that to be. And then if there's a way that you could make that modular, that you plop in to a frame, might work well. If you can find a way to like build your show box and then drop it into the panel. The nice thing about the structure of those boxes is that for most most structural pieces, it's the edges that really take all the stress and the strain. And so the middle is often like sort of wasted material. It's why I-beams work the way they do. The top and bottom of the beam are really important. So that's why they have the thick part. And then the middle is kind of a useless part of the I-beam. And so it's real skinny in the middle. So the same is true for your boxes, where the middle part of the box is kind of a structurally no man's land. So you can pretty easily get away with making that a display area that's much weaker, and your box will still be perfectly strong. So
Good.
that's an interesting, yeah. Signs point toward this is going to work. Might take a lot, but you'll get there. Cool. All right. We've also got James or Lisa. Let's see if James. Oh, there's James. We got him.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a little quiet, but we can hear you.
All right, sorry. I'm also kind of whispering because I have my first cold since 2019, which sucks. I don't have COVID,
Oh,
but I do have a cold, so I didn't come down today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've just been playing with Arduino a bunch more still, as I was kind of messaging you yesterday a bit.
yeah.
Playing with inputs and outputs, trying to catch up on that a little bit. And I decided I wanted to play with ultrasonic sensors.
Ooh.
And roughly my plan is to use an ultrasonic sensor and a tiny little LCD screen that I ordered to just make a what do you call that? Like a ruler thing that
Yeah.
measures so measure a distance between two things and output it to the LCD screen, which is I think it will be not that difficult to do, but there's a bunch of stuff that goes on in there. Other people have done it before, so I'm pretty confident I can figure it out.
Well, and I think that you'll have a great time. It's really fascinating. And at first glance, it sounds like a silly thing, but totally a contractor. When I was going to sell my last house, the realtor walked in with one of those machines that was handheld, and they would just point it at the walls and they would measure how big the room was.
Yeah.
So it's totally completely useful. Yeah, all of them do it.
Like I'm getting a carpet put in tomorrow, and they came to measure, and that's what they did.
That's how they measure. It's just like that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So it's super useful. What you're building is very much something people use.
I also was kind of thinking about like trying to determine what materials do and don't work for reflecting the ultrasonic signal. Like, does water work? Like, I don't know. We'll play with that.
Big flat surfaces work the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the context of that, thinking about like having the ability to like long-term measure the change in spacing of something, like the tides, right? You were talking about the tides, like putting that on like a piling for a dock or on a bridge or something like that, and being able to real-time measure the tide and either save that data or use a Raspberry Pi and some things that I don't quite understand yet to get access to that data.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I've actually thought about fluid measuring a lot, and it's hard to do. I'm really curious to find out if that would work on the bottom of a dock. You could also get like a pipe that's like got mesh on top and bottom, and just put a magnet in a float, and then a bunch of sensors up and down the side of the pipe. So wherever it is in the pipe, it can measure and tell you the location of the water level.
Yeah.
That could work. There's a bunch of ways to do it.
And that's not even something that I'm like, I want to make that thing, but like thinking about that, like idea of like being able to measure over time, like the change in, water or whatever, was like, well, I guess I have to start with some type of sensor. And I picked this one. They were $5.
That's the right way to do it. Start with something cheap.
Yeah. So I'm just going to play around with that and see what happens. And maybe do we have 2 weeks for this project?
Yes. So we have this week, which is like the official week, and the next week is a wild card. Like 2 weeks is the short.
I mean, maybe if I can get all this fired up within a few days, I might expand on that or do something else. But
I think in my bag, I still have some Hall sensors, some magnet sensors. If you want, I'll leave some on the foundation shelf if you want to try those too.
Yeah, it'd be great.
They're just little chips with 3 wires, one for power, one for ground, and one for magnetness being, and I forget how it's reported. I think it's an analog signal,
Yeah.
but it should totally spit out info about whether there's a magnet there or not. It was for the garden thing is why I bought them.
Cool.
But I think it was $8 for 30. Like they're not expensive, but you can't just buy one.
Right.
So
That's kind of the cool thing that I was like looking around at different sensors, and obviously less expensive sensors and things, and output stuff like the LCD screen was also $6, I think.
yeah.
It's so absurdly cheap. And it was all the same thing. It was, I think, 6 or 7 of those ultrasonic sensors for, $5 or whatever. So if anyone else wants to play with one, let me know, because I don't know what I'm going to do with 5 of them.
Yeah, it's all right. You can do, I watched another nerd video this weekend of a phased array where if you put 5 of them in a row, you can actually directionally target distances. So you get real into the physics of it though, but like you can use 5 in a row to send out a directional signal. So it can sort of sweep the area and give you a more specific picture of what things are like.
Nice.
Yeah, they do it on like cars that are trying to figure out things, or like a Roomba might have a phased array of sensors to tell what's going on in front of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play with that unless I find some way to expand that into something else.
All right. That sounds like lots of fun.
Yeah.
So
Should be cool.
awesome. All right. And then show and tell. Last up, we've got Lisa, who's got some cool. I'm excited to see what you've got over there.
So I'll take you through what I did last week and then into what I'd like to do.
Cool.
So I released, did you guys see?
Yeah.
I released the bowl, but I would like to add more resin to it so it becomes less flimsy.
But it's so nicely done.
I'm
Like,
afraid when I add more, it's not going to be so smooth, but maybe I only add it to the outside.
yeah, and it might smooth over the outside, honestly, but it's like so unbelievably perfect. I really enjoy that.
And how do you add resin?
Carefully and with Julia's help.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
something I'll work out with her.
Yeah, I would work it out because she's absolutely a master at it. And I don't want to give the impression that I'm going to have a perfect idea. That's because
Just brush it on?
you totally can brush it on. I think that's what I'm
Yeah,
85% sure that's what she's going to say,
right.
that you should brush it on and let it sit, but then you'll probably want a faster curing resin. Because if it cures in a half an hour, it won't have time to like drip over as much. Whereas for us, it was, what?
Sorry, say it one more time.
Oh, I think a faster curing resin than our like 24 hours.
Oh, right.
You'll want something that's like more like 2 or 3 hours for it to
Uh-huh.
cure. So when you brush it on, it doesn't like slowly run off the thing for a whole day.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the lacy area here did not fill in, it's.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating.
That probably will fill in when I start adding some, but that's okay.
Yeah, and maybe you can like cover the inside with something so that none of it comes in, or like almost
right.
none of it comes
You're
in.
right. Well, without it sticking.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
Well, you'd have to put
Mold release and all
mold
sorts of
relief
stuff.
and-
And maybe you mold release this, and Julia will know, but maybe you mold release this again, set it back down over, and then if you've got a quicker setting resin, because we have different speeds to get it to set, like different part Bs. And so I could imagine you brushing in the open holes, and then it just stays in there and hopefully doesn't drip out, and you can like build up a layer. The other thing is you could probably get more rigidity in the middle with that slight depression by just pouring in resin into that low spot on the bottom. But that's not really where your stability.
No, it's here.
It's the side.
It's like when I started to remove it, it's already cracked here, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
get that stuck back together.
And I think the resin will just solve that problem, but it really like amazingly nicely lifts off.
Yeah, I was thankful that I got it out.
Well, and it's really the expert darting that you did. That like I have never achieved such darting. The like little cuts on the sides is really,
Just one cut on each one.
yeah, but it worked super well.
Yeah,
And you've got all of your detail from the artsy fabric that's still
yeah,
there. And I think you go the outside, like all of these ridges that you get from the folds in the plastic,
yeah.
you might be able to make those sort of go away
Mm.
with more resin added to the outside.
Yeah, so it's a thing to add to the list.
Yeah, totally.
And then I took the tessellations class. And
Yeah.
tessellations, turns out it's just fancy origami where you're just an intense amount of folding. So this started out as a square and then just there's many ways, like it was a particular folding technique, but you could choose from where you folded. And I could have folded from all four sides. In this case, I folded from two in, and that's what created this and makes it curl up like a leaf. But it's a big rabbit hole you can go down.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And it's a special paper he likes to use, which I'm familiar with just because of graphic design, but it's called elephant hide and it's made by Xander's. So that's what we used as well. The first thing we practiced on so we could understand the concept was just printer paper. So this folded down, but it can push out, and that actually is this on a smaller scale.
Oh,
And I just again, I told you can approach it from, so that was folding all the way around from the inside out.
huh.
This is from the outside in, so.
But that's like a fun little bowl.
And then I didn't do this, but I asked him to fold it because I wanted a reference for it. This is just
Oh,
one piece of paper that he went bing, bang, boom, and there it was.
that's yes. And there was a point in life where I knew the name of that type of fold.
Yeah, he said, I don't.
It's definitely Japanese, starts with a Y, but I don't know. I don't want to say the name. But it's Yushikami. I have no idea. And anyone who speaks Japanese is gonna just like roll over at my pronunciation.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about using this particular type of fold to make to fold steel. Actually,
Mhm.
I was thinking about cutting it on the water jet and then
Yeah.
using it to make a steel sound shield
Right.
early in the pandemic, to have like a microphone backer. So I have a steel shield to go around it and then foam on the inside to deaden noise. So it's better sound quality.
Right, yeah, we were talking about it, it must be able to, in the right material, form a good, rated channel sound,
You know, absolutely.
go it down. So I'll show you what I'm thinking of doing, but I also have another thing queued up on my mind as well, but not necessarily for now.
Cool.
So I own it's an apron, it happens to be, it's one piece of fabric, really. I did not make this, but. So this is it, you just kind of put it on and it covers you all the way around, but I want to make one where I go buy denim and you tell me the settings, and I want to try to laser a design in the fabric first.
Okay.
But here's my challenge. The piece is bigger than the bed. So I have to figure out how I can, set aside a portion at a time, slide it and do more.
Yeah. No, that's a really good and challenging problem. You're
Right.
totally right.
Well, wouldn't it, you probably just want to laser on your body, right? Like, could you put lay the denim flat on the sides of the bed? 'Cause there's like some open space around.
I know,
the bed.
right?
Like stick it down in there and lay it flat
I
in the center.
I think that's probably the winning strategy. Another thing that really helps when I've seen people have designs that aren't all cut at once is to make sure that you don't have a square edge anywhere in it. Like if you're one, I've tried to constrain, you've got a 32 by 18 inch area, which is huge. Like if you're trying to fit it on your body, that's a big zone.
Well, and this is bigger than that too.
Yeah.
This is about 32, at least maybe 33
Yeah,
by almost as, a 40 something wide.
yeah. So if you're, because it sounds like you want to add it as like a texture onto the denim.
Yeah. Pattern.
Yeah. And so then try and find the pattern that I did in
Right.
for the drawer on that cart is really cool, but it all of the pieces, if they're not all aligned perfectly to each other, you could totally tell.
Oh, I'm gonna make it totally random.
Yeah, and totally random, I think, is the way to go.
Yeah,
And then the other thing is you could be totally random and then cut it with a box and say like, this is what I'm gonna laser right now. But if you can make the edge of that shape sort of organic-y, but match,
right,
um,
right.
it's gonna look a lot
Do
better.
that. I don't even care if one overlaps the other. It's gonna be that random.
Oh, well, then great. Then you just move on down and cut the next one. Yeah, and that's gonna work like a charm.
So, oh, and let's see, in notes. What I did was, I downloaded a pattern. And
You could probably even like make sure your edges aren't square and then like mimic what it would look like to overlap across the middle of it so that it looks like that overlapping is a feature, not a bug.
so, but I mean, this is, it won't turn right now, but you know, you need a pattern for sewing and that's what so all of that fits on the fabric that way.
Got it.
So you can see that my choices were
Yeah.
two things. I can cut it out and put that on the bed, but I think it would be smarter to just put the whole fabric on there and let it.
Yeah, you totally could. Another thing that the facilitator Denise McGillicuddy, she did a great job with a pattern like that she bought from Adam Savage's website, where she printed it on the large format printer. Because like
That's what I'm about to do today.
yeah,
I have the pattern. I spoke to Ruby. I got
yep,
a badge last night
there you go.
and I'm hoping to print it out, I believe.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because I think that Denise did a great job making a leather and denim bag, a leather and canvas bag that way.
Mhm.
It works really well. You can slap it on and do all the normal cuts. Like as a kid, I remember going to sit in the back of Joanne Fabrics while my mom would pick out patterns. And like now you can just print them.
Yeah.
So doing that, and I think you're probably right. Like getting the one big piece of fabric might be easier to sit on the laser, but it's kind of a toss up. Like,
And how did you lay the fabric down so it was nice and flat?
I had a bigger piece than a laser bed, and I just made sure it was flat over the main area and then wrapped it around underneath. I used one of the two lasers. It's like lifted table is a box, and so the walls come straight down, and then the other one is a platform on a box, so you could wrap it around and underneath. And so that's all. I just wrapped it around and underneath so that the flat,
Wrapped around underneath what?
the table, because this,
The labor table?
can I borrow that pen for a second? The laser table is like, in one of them, it's a straight up box.
Yeah,
So like,
right.
for the sake of
The one
the,
on the left.
yeah, the one on the left, and then the other one is a smaller box with a mesh, but it's got a table sitting on top of it. So there's a space down over here and
Yeah,
over
right.
here. And so I laid it down as a fabric over top and then sort of bunched up on either side what it was that we're looking for. Just for everybody playing at home. And I think that if you do that, you're going to get a good shot at getting the middle part to be good, especially if you're really just trying to move it in one dimension instead of like across the grid.
Yeah, and evidently Ruby has done fabric with it, so.
Oh yeah.
I'll pick her brain.
Yep. Ruby was the inspiration for me lasering onto denim. She and Lila really like
Yeah,
nailed the perfect settings to
Good.
look really good.
yeah, I have to find out from somebody, be you or them, what those settings are.
I just kind of guessed and it worked out fine.
Yeah,
They like did a bunch of tests and made sure they
Yeah.
looked good. They know better.
and I already called Joanne Fabrics to try to track down the stuff, because online it said it was out of stock everywhere.
Sure.
I didn't believe that, so. I
Yeah.
called, and I found some, so I mean, that's how far I've gotten with that. I hope I can print the pattern out tonight, because that's gonna help me before I go buy the fabric.
Yeah.
That will really work.
Makes sense. And then Denise is here during the day,
Good,
but I don't know what day
I
of the
can
week.
find out.
Yeah, but find out, and between this week and next week, you'll be able to talk to her, and I'm sure she still has her bag that she made,
And what is she a facilitator in?
textiles.
Good, because, I mean, I know how to sew, but I have questions.
Yeah, no, it always helps. Each new machine is always a thing.
Yeah, and the other thing that at some point I would like to do is, this thing is the board is so big, where am I gonna put it? And I decided I want to make some kind of brackets on the wall.
Oh,
and let
yeah,
it hang
yeah,
vertically right there.
that makes sense.
So I have to figure out what's gonna hold it up, and I could easily get it in and out.
Oh, yeah, just looking at that, like
Mhm.
this photo of the wall. You've got to have, like looking at this one photo, you've got to have a stud on either side of it and probably one down the middle. I think if you made a piece of like a little wooden shelf below it to hold it.
Right,
And then the other thing is something on the top so it doesn't like fall down on you.
right.
And I think you'd be good. So,
What I was thinking of.
yeah. What were you?
So like around this position and this position, just like a nice chrome plated something rather that comes out of the wall that's, this big and has a knob on the end of it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it sits on that. Then on the top, maybe something like, see, that's right, something like that, but where the knobs come off, screw off. So that you can slide it out, and when you put it back, you screw them back on.
There's some part of me that wonders if you could just get away with using like fancy drawer pulleys. And like one side gets anchored into the wall and the other side comes out and is tapped for the size of like a drawer pull.
Right,
Because usually when you're putting on a false front, you have the 3.5-inch holes.
right.
Or one central hole. And so you could get like just a fancy old-timey screw-on pull, find its thread size, and then have a rod of metal that is set to, that is just got holes tapped on either side. So that one side goes into an anchor that's in the wall and the other side is ready to accept the drawer pull. So like a metal cylinder with two holes,
Right.
two tapped holes on the sides. That might totally do it. And then you could just unscrew the tops whenever it's time.
Right, to take it off. So, as long as there's no wear and tear on the thing by sitting on only two things.
It should be fine, I would imagine.
Yeah, so that's a thought, just something that at some point I want to
Yeah,
tune into.
well, and it's, with that description, it sounds like it should be pretty achievable, but it's a couple metal pieces that you just need some round stock that you'll drill holes into and then sand and polish it.
Like aluminum.
Like, yeah, aluminum would totally work. There's probably something sitting in the scrap pile that you could just use. We could turn, depends on if you want to get or have the lathe badge, you could turn any piece into a round stock and then drill a hole on the lathe and then flip it over and drill the other side and then use a tap, probably mounted in a drill press and just turn it manually. So you get a nice straight hole down the middle.
And how would it anchor into the wall?
You can buy let's see, I'm gonna share my screen and do some shopping. So share this and let's do Chrome. Over to this one, let's grab. So here I was looking for bits. We can do wall anchor. Double thread. I don't know if this is going to be right, but there are, so when you're sinking things into the wall, there's like these kind of wall anchors. And then this is not what I was thinking. There's some, I have a real specific name. Let's do Lowe's hardware. And I want to go to the website. I'm probably able to find it from their hardware. Somewhere in here, hardware essentials, cabinet, door, fasteners. Oh, maybe it's in those hooks. Probably. It's like a specific type of screw that on one side it's a wood screw and on the other side it's a machine screw. And it's meant to go into things to like sort of hide how it works. Maybe that was it. But it's a specific type of fastener. I would like know where to find it for you at Lowe's. But its name totally and completely eludes me, and it's going to come back at some point. It's not a bolt, a specialty fastener kits, maybe something in here. There's also these like spacers that you could use. But just sort of wandering through the hardware aisle is often really informative. And so just doing that, seeing what they've got, and like it should be just a handful of these things. And so, we're just like somewhere in here, it would take a little searching, but we can totally find it. So a little bit of extra looking and we'll be able to get you something that would work. The name of it is, it's a wood screw on one side and a machine screw on the other side, and that would totally work to just make a standoff. But those standoffs that they were using are probably that we saw, those are probably exactly the right thing also, spacers. So there's a bunch of options. Spacers and machine bushings. So here's all sorts of different, and these are interesting, like they give you some standoff for your material. The idea with these is that you put a screw through them usually, and they just give you something to space it out. So
Yeah, so those spacers just have to be nice looking.
yeah, and if you
It
got
could even be brass or something, but then brass tends to, it could discolor.
single drawer pull, if I can spell. And the thing is, if you've got like a single drawer pull, and these aren't the ones you'd want because they've got like
Yeah.
hangers and knockers and all that stuff, but it's something like this. Not that this is the one that you want, but it's this sort of a style. This is with a 1/4 inch, and
It's gotta be like a flat disc, some like that, a flat disc, because it's gotta catch the side of the board.
right. Yeah, so you'd want to have it be flat on the inside, or you get something
Yeah.
like this, and we can turn it flat, or there's a bunch of ways.
I'd find flat.
Yeah.
There's other places to get drawer pulls.
Yeah, so you just look around until you find one that you've got. And I think you're gonna have to get real specific about the actual way that these mechanically fit. So you're just gonna have to really get into the nuts, the like hardware pieces of it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it
Yeah.
at some point.
We'll find some good examples and go for it. Cool, that's lots of fun. So it sounds
That's it.
like everybody's got a fun plan for a thing to do for the next couple of weeks. And I'm gonna go back to stop sharing my screen. Oh, there's a couple things in the chat. Should make sure that I'm not ignoring this. Oh,
Keep
James,
going.
Denise on Monday. Yeah, the bowl does look great. There's all sorts of cool stuff. I'm excited to see what you all are up to. And I think if nobody has any other questions about strange things, let's all just get to build it. I feel like it's time to get going. Give ourselves a little time now and get to it. Cool. All right. So people playing along at home, nice to see you. Good to check in. Hopefully we'll see you. I'll be around on Thursday and Sunday. And if you have any questions, let me know. All right. See ya.